Welcome to Health Systems CIO's interview with TJ Mann, Chief Information Security Officer with Children's Mercy, Kansas City. I'm Anthony Guerra, founder and editor-in-chief. TJ, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, TJ, let's start off. You want to tell me a little bit about your organization and your role?
Sure. So I am the current Chief Information Security Officer for Children's Mercy, Kansas City. We have 2 hospitals in the area. There are 23 clinical sites. We have a recently inaugurated Children's Mercy Research Institute, which is focused on identifying and detecting genetic defects and building treatment plans for and research around that for kids specifically. And we have a value-based program as well. We operate in Kansas and some remote locations in Kansas and Missouri primarily, and some remote locations within Kansas. So I'm happy to be here. I've been with Children's Mercy for about it'll be 4 years next month. I have the complete responsibility for strategically aligned cybersecurity program and maintaining the effectiveness of that program.
All right, very good. You mentioned 4 years coming up on your anniversary, so congratulations on that.
Thank
That's
you.
pretty good tenure these days for a CISO.
Yeah.
Any C-suite is pretty good.
Yeah.
Tell me how you got here in a career sense, how you wound up in IT, how you wound up in security, and how you wound up in healthcare IT security, how you wound up in this job. If you want to give me sort of an overview, I think people find it interesting how CISOs wind up where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting journey, and my academic background is in IT. So I have my bachelor's in IT, and my master's is in computer science, actually, not on the security side. And I graduated with my master's program in 2010, and even back then, not a whole lot of universities were offering cybersecurity or information security degrees. There were no programs per se. Yeah. So the only career path to get into security was, you come in from network side of the house, or you come in directly from IT side of the house, and you kind of find and carve your way into security. But nowadays, it's good to see that a lot of universities are offering security degrees to kind of build their pipeline and talent pipeline. To go back, I think I knew I wanted to be in security as early as I can remember, 7th grade.
Wow.
And it's interesting, right? And back then, we were first introduced to binary arithmetic. And ones and zeros and adding and subtracting and everything. I thought, man, this is pretty cool. I want to learn. This is interesting to me. So a couple more things to add in there. I'm an immigrant, a 0th gen immigrant. I immigrated with my family here in 2005 to the U.S. And I already had my bachelor's in India before I moved. So this was still in India. I was going to school, and I saw binary arithmetic and found it very cool. So it kind of grew interest. But growing up, I was also into sports. I wanted to go that route, but my parents were like, "No, you got to make something of your life." But anyways, and so back when I was in high school in India, I saw the Terminator, the movie Terminator.
Oh, yeah.
There is a scene in that movie where the kid goes to the ATM machine and does something, and it starts spitting out all the cash and all the money. And I found that very fascinating. And I told myself, man, I need to learn how to do this. People can do this. This is awesome. And so what I did was, back then there was 56 kbps modems, right? And the internet was slow. I downloaded the entire ATM manuals for Diebold and NCR machines. Those were the 2 big ATM manufacturers back then. And I read through all those manuals, just trying to figure out how this thing works and how can I make it spit out money.
Yeah.
And back then, and there were a lot of lot of trial and error, but nothing worked.
Uh-huh.
So I figured, man, if I need to learn how to break it, I need to know how this works. So that actually grew a lot more interest on the security side of the house. Although I already had interest in the IT or the computers in general, this particular moment really grew my interest in terms of how to break into things in order to secure them. And that was my entire mantra throughout my academic career, that I needed to learn how to break things so I can secure them. And I wanted to be on the security side of the house. So moved here to the US in 2005, really didn't have, financially we were struggling pretty hard, didn't have much, just had 1 month's rent for an apartment when we moved to the US. So I had a job as a server, and I was going to grad school in the evenings for my master's program. So eventually graduated from my master's program and started really building a career in security. With my first role as, I really grew up from the ranks. My first role as a compliance and privacy analyst at LexisNexis. It's a company out of Ohio. Amsterdam is their headquarters, but this was based in Ohio. And then moving to bigger and better roles. I spent about 4 years with LexisNexis, grew into this information security generalist role, then moved on to Bank of America to help with their cyber analytics and lead their incident log, security log analysis and monitoring teams. From there on, I was contacted by PwC and PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I spent about 4 years with PwC, based out of Chicago, and that role really helped me grow a lot, and essentially transition from an individual contributor to a leader. I got promoted to a manager position, and within those 4 years, I got a lot of exposure. And I always tell people consulting is like dog years. What you end up doing in the industry in, in 7 years, you get to get that exposure and experience in 1 year, because you're working with so many different clients and so many different complex problems and new tools and everything. And with that also, I gained experience working in the US, in Asia, in Europe. And that was very key in terms of learning cross-cultural norms, cross-continental communications, and working with teams that are remote. And some of the major clients, I worked for Costco, for MetLife, and some of the major Fortune 100 and 500 financial institutions, and really helping CISOs build their security programs, mature their security programs, some niche service offerings, building cross-functional incident response plans, or establishing cyber fusion centers. So that really kick-started my career into a different level. After about 4 years, I was contacted by Children's Mercy for this role, and David Chow was there at that time. Actually, he was the CIO, and they were looking for somebody to come in and build a security program and a security team. And there wasn't much at Children's Mercy at that time, as if you want to call it from a security program perspective. We had a handful of people who were really focused on day-to-day operations. And so I joined about 4 years ago, and the first order of business was really to build relationships, go on a listening and learning tour, and really meet the different business unit leaders and understand their pain points, and figure out where the gaps are currently and where we need to go, and build that 5-year strategy and vision, and build cybersecurity goals, and build that roadmap. To do that, obviously needed a team. So in the first year, that was basically my current state assessment. And meeting with the executives, meeting with the board of directors, presenting my business cases for the FTEs I wanted to hire, the budget I needed to really build what needed to be built. And so I was successfully able to grow the team sixfold since I joined. So we had 3 FTEs, 3 contractors, and now we're 38 team strong. That was a big accomplishment. And really, a couple of years ago, with the entire team, we went on about a 6-month kind of a workshop, a very long workshop to translate the organizational goals into cybersecurity goals. So we could come up with a cybersecurity strategic plan and a vision for the next 5 years on what are we doing. Everything we're doing ties back to one of the organizational goals, and that's the key in terms of establishing a successful security program. And couldn't be prouder of the team where we are.
Very good. So you were at PwC. It sounds like up to that point you had no experience in healthcare until Children's Mercy came. So number one, you made a decision that you were not going to be in consulting anymore. I mean, I don't know if you didn't want to travel anymore or you kind of had enough of that. The other thing is healthcare sounds like it was new to you. So that goes both ways. The employer was interested in you with no healthcare experience, and you were open to the idea of specializing at this point. So just take me through that a little bit, that decision-making process.
Sure. First of all, I loved my job at PwC. I think it's a great company, and I would encourage anyone straight out of college, go work for a consulting firm. And I love traveling, so that was not a problem at all. I think what was starting to happen was the honest truth is I was dating, and there were every girl I would speak to were like, yeah, sure, we can meet, this weekend because I'm in a different city right now for the entire week, and that wouldn't go very well. Always traveling, and so it was hard to find time. I think the real reason I left PwC was I looked at it as an investment in myself. It was an investment in my personal life from a dating perspective, but also it was an investment in my health. I wanted to give more time to myself, to my mental well-being and my physical well-being. And I found it was hard for me to balance that with all the traveling. So those were the 2 big reasons why I left PwC, just to give more time to myself, my health, and my mental well-being. And yes, when this opportunity came across, I was a little, that thought came to my mind that, okay, well, it's healthcare. I don't have much exposure in there. So I reached out to some of my colleagues and friends at PwC who worked with healthcare clients to just get an idea of the landscape. Because when you look at security, the basic frameworks are all the same. They're the same frameworks. The controls and the intent of the controls is the same. The idea and the goal of cybersecurity as an organization is the same, to reduce the risk to the organization and protect the business. But the threat vectors are different when it comes to the different industry verticals, right? What you see, what might be a threat that may be moving at a higher velocity and of a higher magnitude, that same threat could not be the same velocity or magnitude in a different industry vertical. And you look at ransomware, and you look at the most hit industry verticals are state and local governments and healthcare institutions. 2 reasons, right? Because they both have to keep running 24/7. So there is a self-interest to pay the ransom, and second, they're both immature, and they're getting up to speed in terms of cybersecurity. So, in short, why I took this role is because of the challenge. I think at that time, and I still think, that healthcare is obviously, financial services is one of the most mature industry verticals when it comes to cybersecurity, but healthcare, retail, state and local governments, they're gaining maturity, right? And I looked at that as an opportunity. And that challenge is what really excited me for this role, that there's an opportunity for me to go in there, build something from scratch, a team, a program, and make a difference. And make a difference in improving security posture for an organization that is so focused on, it's a mission focused organization, so focused on pediatric healthcare, creating a world of well-being for all children. That's our goal. And it's a nonprofit organization, and quite honestly, it's probably one of the most fulfilling job I've ever had. And the reason I say that is because usually you work in IT and security, you're mostly behind the scenes and you're making things work. But here, I go out in the community and I tell people I work for Children's Mercy. The odds are either they themselves or their kids or somebody they know has been to Children's Mercy, and they have memories and stories, and so it's fulfilling to see that you're doing all this work and you put in late hours for the community, for the well-being of the children.
So it sounds like a lot of reasons that it lined up and that it was the right time to move. Some question, follow-up question on something you mentioned. There's a lot of similarities across industries when it comes to security. So CISOs would have the skills are certainly transferable. If you're a CISO in one industry, you can be successful as a CISO in another industry. But you mentioned the threat vectors are different. Threat intelligence is an important part of being a CISO, having good threat intelligence. I guess there's certain free things that the government puts out, CISA, whatnot, and other organizations. And then I assume there's private feeds that you can pay for, that different vendors put out. How important to you is threat intelligence, and how do you leverage that to make sure you're doing the best you can?
Yeah, well, we'd be blind without threat intelligence. I often say that intel wins wars. And that's the same concept. You go into military or war zone. You can't win a war if you don't know what your adversary is doing, or you don't know what's coming at you, right? You're basically essentially running blind. So I personally think threat intelligence is a key capability for any security program. And what we've done here is we have multiple different avenues for gathering that threat intelligence. We pay for a service as well, which delivers us curated threat intelligence for our organization and for the healthcare industry in general and for our area. So we are aware of and are ahead of any geopolitical risks or any targeted industry vertical risks or threats that may be coming at us. And we also have free feeds as well. We're members of institutions like HISAC, HINS, and so we get daily threat intel from those sources also. And the way we are, and this is an area that's still maturing for us, but the way we're using that threat intelligence is primarily in our incident response investigations. When the team does an incident response investigation, they need to better understand the threat actor, and how quickly the threat is moving, and what is the likely next, based on this threat actor's MO, what is the likely next step that's going to happen. So that helps us stay ahead and be proactive. And what we're working on right now is integrating that threat intel into other programs, like a vulnerability management program. As we look at the different vulnerabilities, we want to understand how is that vulnerability being exploited in the wild? Is it a rapid exploitation? So we can better understand and assess the impact to our assets. And I think other use cases would be to integrate the threat intelligence into your SOC environment, and into your business continuity environment to understand the various threats, and also into your cyber risk management work. or program that maybe that you may have. So I think it's a very important part, a key capability for any cybersecurity program.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I had always thought of threat intelligence as helping you create a good defense because you have an idea what's going on. But you said something very interesting, which is as you're dealing with an incident and a breach actively, threat intelligence will help you understand what that actor may do next. So I hadn't thought of that. That's pretty interesting. Helps keep you
Yeah,
nimble.
and you look at the MITRE ATT&CK framework,
Yeah.
and with the various threat intelligence reports that you get an MO of the various threat actors on what they usually do when they infiltrate an organization. So that is a critical resource if you've already identified the threat actor during an active breach. You can definitely leverage that to understand what likely is going to happen next. If you're obviously already consulting the kill chain to understand, what is the next step in this ongoing attack, but what actual tactic is going to be aligned with that next phase of the incident can be derived from some of the available information, if things line up, obviously.
So you you moved around a lot when you were at PwC in terms of seeing different clients, seeing best practices. You got an almost a greenfield opportunity at Children's Mercy, which is great because you'd always been telling clients, here's what you need to do, here's what's wrong, you see, and now you had an opportunity to build it out. What do you think is the difference between an average CISO and an outstanding CISO?
I think the difference is not technical, and I truly believe that the leaders that come to this position have the technical ability and acumen to make it happen. I think the difference is on the soft skill side. The difference is how I think leadership plays a key role in this role. And I've a few different facets that would help outside of the technical acumen would be, first of all, your leadership skills and your abilities to coach, mentor, lead a team and keep them motivated, keep them engaged. And I think the other piece is how well of a communicator you are, and how can you easily translate technical jargon into plain English. And I think another key quality is relationship building. How well are you able to build strong relationships across the business stakeholders in your organization? Because eventually what it comes down to is trust and credibility for a CISO. Again, we're not CISO. As a CISO, you're not you're not a risk owner. You're a risk flag bearer, right? Your job is to identify risk and assess that risk and share the implications with the business and the executives. But they'll only trust you if you build that trust and credibility. So those soft skills, and I think when it comes to leading teams, two key soft skills that I've found in the last 2 years to be of massive importance, that I've started to give more importance in my personal leadership, is empathy and compassion. I think what I've seen in the last 2 years or so during the pandemic, there's a real need for true and genuine empathy and compassion with your team. So many people on my team have gone through so much in the last 2 years. And I think if you really want to be a visionary leader, you need people to trust you, people to believe you, and that you care for them, and that you have their best interests in your mind. And I think, like any relationship, you can only be successful if your team is successful. So like in any relationship, empathy plays a genuine role, in my opinion, when you really show care about someone and you do something about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You want to actually care, right? There's a difference between caring and showing you're caring. So we're not talking about faking it, right?
No.
But what do you do if you don't care? You're in the wrong job. You're not going to be
Well,
able to lead, or
if you
do you fake it until you make it? I don't know.
if you don't care, then you will sooner or later you will learn that that uh, you have no way of being successful.
Yeah.
Your success as a leader lies in your team's success, and only when you've created more leaders like yourself or even better leaders, that's when you can call yourself a successful leader. So if you don't care, then sooner or later you won't be even a leader.
You have to, number one, care, and then show you care. Don't
Yeah.
skip that first step.
And do something about it, right? Just don't talk about it. Like, write a handwritten Thanksgiving card and thank your employees and your staff that that you care about them. If somebody's come down with, it's very common, like somebody on my staff came, contracted COVID. They're fine, everything is good, but showing that, making that phone call and talking to them that, hey, I found about this. Is there anything I can drop by to you at your doorstep, or do you need anything? Those things really matter and they go along. It's not, everybody knows that roles are not permanent. You'll move on, they'll move on, you'll go, but it's the bonds, right? It's how you treat others. It's going to come back to you. And if you want a high performing team, you have to take care of them. You have to be genuinely empathetic and compassionate about them, about their needs. And you have to be a good coach, which means that in my philosophy, that's a servant leadership. And having them being empowered and take the lead and moving forward, but guiding them towards the right direction. So from my leadership philosophy principles perspective, I truly believe that if you can inspire, empower, appreciate, and communicate better with the team, you can really form a high performing team.
That's really, really good stuff. High level question here. So there's two different ways you could take this question. You could either talk about one or two of the things you're working on if you want to, but you don't have to do that because a lot of CISOs don't want to talk about what they're working on, which is fine. And if you don't want to do that, talk about maybe one or two of the biggest trends you see out there around security that you think are quite important.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the trends. And I think first trend that I've seen is from a people perspective. And I see a lot of people want to come into cybersecurity as a field of choice. At the same time, I also see a lot of people who want to be in cybersecurity, right? So the difference is people who desire to come in because that's their passion, or people who want to be there because they see this is a hot field and they may have some related experience, but not really exact experience that's needed or skills that are needed. So it, I think when we couple that with the global shortage within our field, we are at a very strange time. And point I'm getting to is that there is indeed a shortage of cybersecurity resources, but what I'm not seeing is a lot of effort from people who desire to be in the cybersecurity field, to build that baseline to be in that interview and say that even though I haven't had a job, I've done these things to really demonstrate that I need this is a field that interests me. And so I've seen that as in the last few years that as a trend in a way that and I think more could be done. I think from CISO communities to provide the transparency on what's needed to
Yeah.
in today's jobs and roles, and what skill sets are we looking for, so we can guide
Hmm.
this new talent into a way that is going to be helpful for the future CISOs.
Well, do you want to name any of those things right now in terms of the things that you're not seeing, but you would love to see on an applicant when they come in and speak with you? What are those baseline things that you're looking for that you perhaps
Yeah.
are not seeing?
Yeah. So I want to see that they have a passion. I want to see that they're willing to learn new things. I
Hmm.
want to see that they, in their free time, they've invested their time in towards that direction. That even though they didn't have a job or they don't have the cyber experience, but they're going online and they have a daily cyber feed, for example, that they're
Hmm.
staying up to date on what's happening in the news from a cybersecurity standpoint.
Hmm.
They have a current understanding of the threat vectors, or what's happening, who's getting breached, or what if they're going, for example, come into a hospital at, like in Children's Mercy for an interview. Even if they don't have healthcare experience, I'm okay with that. But what I do want to see is that they know about the healthcare industry.
Right.
They know about the threat vectors.
Hmm.
They, at a base level, have an understanding, and more importantly, that they are passionate to build that, to learn more, and they're open to learning a new industry, and they're open to building their skills. That's what I
So
would say.
this sounds like basic common sense, prepare for an interview stuff, right? I mean, spend some time. If you're interviewing for a security position at a hospital, you should be spending hours and hours and hours reading about breaches. You should be able to cite at least the biggest three breaches of the past 2 years and reference that in the interview. Throw that out to me
Yeah.
so I know you're abreast of it. Talk about why you think that happened. Talk about bring up some interesting points. So you're seeing a lack of that in some of these interviews. They're not coming with that. They're just coming with, I'm passionate and I want to be here, but you're not doing any homework to prepare, correct?
Yeah, at least that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's different for others, but I feel like it's not about, I don't want them to memorize everything. I just want them to be passionate and be open to learning, that they should know, at least I would like the candidates to know that this is the landscape right now. Oh,
Hmm.
I know this happened last month.
Hmm. Yeah.
This is why it happened. But here's what I think could have been done differently. And that could be wrong, that's fine. But at least you tried. Right?
Yeah. No, I think that's great to put out there. Um, and
And I'm not
because,
looking for any certifications, or I mean, even if you don't have
yeah.
certifications or degrees,
Hmm.
but you're still passionate and you want to learn, and that is shown from your comments and your
Yes.
conversation, that you've done some homework, done some
Yeah.
research, and you want to learn more, I'd rather give that person a chance.
Yeah. And there's always we want to hear that they have questions for you, right? I mean,
Yes.
when I say, do you have any questions for me? You don't say, not really. Right? That's not a good sign, right?
No.
You want some intelligent questions, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So,
So that's one trend. And I think the other trend that I'm seeing is obviously that with COVID, um, this is more of a technical trend from a
mhm,
security standpoint. With COVID, a lot of organizations, sent their workforce remote. So did we, and we, like others, I think we lost some of that visibility from the network perspective. So I think that's the other technical trend that I'm seeing, that everybody is now pushing towards securing the that remote workforce from a cloud internet connection perspective,
mhm,
because not all of that workforce is coming through your network anymore. So they're going directly to cloud-based services. And how do you secure that? So that's another technical trend that I've seen. It's something that we are also working on here at Children's.
yeah, that's a big one. All right, listen, I try and keep these to 30 minutes. We're a few minutes over, so I just want to give you a last opportunity. And the question here is, any final parting advice for your CISO colleagues out there who are, trying to do the work you're doing, and maybe some of them are being a little more successful, some less. But what's your parting nugget for them?
My parting nugget is really let's be more collaborative. That's the only way we can all get better. We are all doing great work, and the more we share among ourselves, the better we can get against the adversary. And just keep doing the good work and keep fighting the good fight.
Very good, TJ. That was a wonderful talk, and I think it's going to be great for our readers. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.